Deck the halls with lots of grubblies. Cluck, 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 cluck. Bok, 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 bok.
Oh, that's awesome.
Sorry, I couldn't help myself. I just got back from a rockin' Grubblies happy hour with my flock.
Well, I can't really blame you. Grubblies are a healthy poultry snack alternative to those made-in-China mealworms. Grubblies have 50 times more calcium than mealworms, which means more bang for your buck, and you get higher quality eggshells and strong, shiny feathers. The perfect snack no matter how many French hens or geese a laying are in your flock.
So head on over to grubblyfarms.com and use code FARM15 to get 15% off your first order.
We drink things, we farm things, we drink and farm things.
Oh, hey there, Sam.
Oh, hey there, Bev. What'd you open?
I just opened a Windridge Farm Brewing Farmhand Series Barn Peyton Goza Sour Ale. Whew, that's a mouthful.
Ooh, yeah, it is.
Yeah, Windridge is Pennsylvania's hardest working beer.
Oh,
Fun.
interesting. So what does it mean to be one's hardest working beer?
I don't know. It doesn't say on the can. So I guess they just get to say it and we repeat it and that suddenly makes it true, right?
Kind of like the scene in the movie Elf where it says world's best cup of coffee and he has Jovi try it and she's like, this tastes like a crappy cup of coffee. So you can call it whatever you want if there's no proof in the pudding.
Yeah, I mean, I'll have to try it and tell you what I think of it.
Okay.
But what did you open over there?
So I have a Bell's Christmas Ale, and it is a Scotch ale. And it's actually a traditional Scotch ale with rich and malty notes of caramel and warm, and it has a warm finish, and it's certain to make any occasion festive, or at least a bit more bearable. Enjoy with the company of friends and family. So I feel like what they're claiming there about it making it a bit more bearable is probably, pretty accurate. So,
Yeah, I would say so.
yeah.
And I give this Barn Peyton Goza 3 thumbs up. It's pretty good.
3 thumbs up.
3 thumbs, and then I stumbled over saying 3 thumbs, so there you go.
We're off to a good start.
Welcome to We Drink and We Farm Things.
This is the Farm Comedy Podcast that is an adult happy hour for the farming community, from hobby farmers to the large-scale real deal farmers.
We drink adult beverages, talk about the ups and downs of farming things, and give 0 clucks about not having the perfect farm life.
We keep it real with you and share the mistakes we've made and the new knowledge we gained, so hopefully you don't feel so alone in this farm thing.
And sometimes we go off on tangents that are non-farming related, but we cut a lot of those and put them up on our Patreon.
And this episode's outtakes are exclusively for our Patreon peeps, so check out our Patreon page at patreon.com/drinkandfarm, where we have fun exclusive recordings, and sometimes we throw pictures up there. And it's an excellent way to support the podcast, starting at just $2 a month.
And speaking of the Patreon, our drinks this episode were sponsored by Natalie Quist, which is at Cloud Lover Fiber over on the Instagram. So cheers, Natalie.
Cheers.
And while we're on the topic of the Patreon, I just have to give a quick shout out to Brandy Flair, who said drink farm and be merry to us in an email last year. And I just randomly happened upon it. And I laughed because I was like, oh my gosh, I did not remember that she had put that in an email to us.
No, and I never saw it. And I said that to Bev this year as like a brilliant idea for merchandise. So apparently great minds just think alike.
So true. I love it. It's just an example of how 2 people can come up with a super cool idea without collaborating.
Exactly.
And then we also wanted to give a huge thank you to @RentedHomesteadCA over on the Instagram for sending us a bunch of super cute alpaca gifts.
Oh my gosh. That just like warmed my heart seeing that. And I think I told you, like, can you send me a picture of what we got? Because Bev's gonna have to send me part of it. Because for those of you that don't know, I live in Michigan and Bev lives in Ohio. And all of our P.O. Box goodness is in Ohio. So I asked Bev to send me a picture of it, and it just totally made my day. I had such a shitty day that day. Like, everything was going wrong. Like, it wasn't like the end of the world or anything truly that bad happened. But, you know, you just have those days sometimes where it's okay to say, like, you're having a crappy day and not feel like just because you're not dying, like, that's not, you know, something you're allowed to feel. But, like, seeing all of that just warmed my heart and made me feel so special and loved in that moment. So thank you. That is just so kind of you to send us all that. And I can't wait to get it in person and wear the warm fuzzy socks.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Yeah, I can't wait for you to get it. It was so exciting. And in fact, like it's been really fun this season because we sent out Christmas cards, and that's how I came across that email that Brandy Flair had sent, because I had needed to ask her for her address so I could send her a Christmas card. And just the act and practice of doing that just kind of made me feel eternally grateful for the podcast and our listeners. Because, like, it's easy to get caught up in, like, growing and being better and doing all the things to reach more people. But, like, to just take that moment to appreciate the listeners we have just made me feel, like, extra warm and fuzzy. And then that alpaca gift showed up in the mail that same day that I dropped off the Christmas card. So it was just, like, double. Like, I just, like, got double the fuzzies that day from this podcast, which was just, it was super cool.
That is really cool.
So I do have a correction this episode, and it's a correction on myself.
Oh, okay.
So in the last episode, I had said that my new cow that was coming had some sort of dwarfism issue, but it turns out he doesn't have dwarfism. He's just like an extra miniature Hereford. Yeah, because the farmer tests his herd for dwarfism, because that's something that you need to do if you breed certain breeds of cows, apparently. I don't know a whole ton about it, so I'm not going to go like super into it, but dwarfism in miniatures and miniature cattle is actually a really big deal. So you typically do like genetic testing before you start breeding certain pairs to make sure that nobody carries it, because it's something that like ruins the registerability and the show quality and all of that good stuff. So he's not a dwarf. I used the wrong terminology. He's just extra small.
He's just a little guy.
Yeah, I mean, but he's really not a little guy. He's like 850 pounds. So he's still giant, but just not giant for a cow.
Yeah. How fun. I'm so excited for you to get that darn cow. Oh my gosh. I'm going to live vicariously through you.
Oh, I'm so excited too. I think he shows up on Tuesday. We finished the loafing shed on Friday, and I immediately pulled Herc out of the pasture, and we've got like a hitching post. So I hitched Herc and got the goats moved over to their side, pulled the mule out. We moved the goats' shelter so they could have a clean spot that, you know, Herc hasn't pooped all over for them to sleep in. And then put Herc into where the loafing shed was, and was like, all right, I'm ready for the cow.
Perfect timing.
Jared's like, how much daylight do we have left? Do you think we have time to do this? I looked around and was like, we got 30 minutes. We can totally switch everybody around in 30 minutes.
That was your exercise for the day.
It really was. Yeah, it was good exercise. And Herc loves his new little loafing shed. He just like hangs out in there. He loves a little too much. He's been pooping all over the inside of it.
Well, that's nice of him.
I know, right? So I'm going to go lime it and clean it after we're done.
He's just making it his own. That's
Pretty
all.
much.
So now it's time for our Henny and Rue corner, because I don't know about you. I got my box yesterday.
Did.
Okay, you got yours too. Okay, good. So what was your favorite thing in the December Henny and Rue box that you got?
So I think I'm going to have to say that my favorite thing was the knit cap.
Yes.
Because like I use those all the time, and I just have a giant pile of them next to the door, and I always have to throw one on my head before I go outside, because like the cold wind on my ears is the worst, and I have to go outside multiple times a day. So yeah, I was really appreciative for that, and it's super cute.
Yeah, I might have made a excited squealing noise when I saw that. So,
What was your favorite thing from the box?
so I think mine was the hen love ornament, because as I mentioned before, and Beth has one too. We both have little farm trees in our house that have exclusively their purpose is like for farm ornaments. So that is why I was so excited for that, because I just got to add another one to the tree today and did a little happy dance. So the only other place I really get farm ornaments from is Tractor Supply. So when I can get them from different sources, that makes me really happy in a very festive way.
Oh yeah, and the person that made the ornaments was Goodrich Metalworks, and in fact, I ordered ornaments from them last year, so I already had a hen ornament, and I have a donkey ornament that they made. So that's why I call that like my tree of manifestation, because just whatever animal I want, I stick up on that tree, and suddenly it shows up over the next year. So
Is there a cow on there or no?
there isn't. The cow just kind of came from random happenstance. So I've got to like plot what my ornaments are I want to add to it before Christmas comes around this year. But yeah, you can find them at Goodrich Metalworks. So if you didn't get a Honey and Rue box, you can still order one of those if you want one. But I highly recommend you just subscribe to the box so you can get surprises.
Yes. The other surprise that I really appreciated was the 2020 chicken photography calendar, because it's like the perfect size for putting it on my fridge, like on the side that actually like is magnetic. But I always like to keep a small one on the fridge so I could just glance at it when I'm in the kitchen. And we got one of those, and the pictures are super cute. I mean, you can't go wrong with a chicken calendar.
That's so true. And Tina also included a Honey and Rue egg scrubby in this box, and I love those things. Like I buy them every now and then. I'll just like go to the website and buy like 5 of them, because when I give eggs to people, I'll give them one of those egg scrubbies too,
Oh, that's so cute.
just as a little gift. And I use my egg scrubby for so much more than just eggs. I like scrub out the inside of the sink with it. I scrubbed the like mud and stuff out of the tread of my boots the other day with it.
Oh my God.
And then I just disinfected it because, you know, like it's fine.
Yeah.
We use it on chicken poop. So I figured I could pretty much use it on everything as long as I wash it afterwards.
Exactly. You can pop it. You probably pop it in the dishwasher. I don't know if that's okay or not, but it might be worth a try.
I don't know. I
Just to
usually
fully
just dip it in a little
sanitize.
bleach.
Oh, bleach works well too. We also got a small package of black soldier fly larvae from iowabluefarm.com. And I bribed my chickens with that while we took pictures with the Honey and Rue box today, and some other pictures that I took outside. So that was the perfect size for bribery. I'll just leave it at that.
Perfect. And we also got a bag of chubby mealworms. And, you know, I like chubby mealworms also. They're also made and grown in the USA. So good mealworms.
Yes. And we also got some gauze pads, which is always helpful to have on hand. Never go wrong with having extra in your first aid kit. And as always, we got the nesting box pad. And you can use that in your coop. And they are biodegradable, which is perfect. We love that.
Yes, we do. And if you don't subscribe to the Honey and Rue box yet, be sure and go to honeyandrue.com, subscribe, and you will save 10% off your first box when you use our code DRINKANDFARM.
All right. So in last week's episode, we talked about how amazing reindeer are, and a lot of their physical characteristics and some of the history of reindeer and why they're associated with Christmas. So today we're going to start talking about what it takes to keep reindeer and what it takes to maybe even start a business.
Woohoo! I'm so excited for this. Not that I want to farm reindeer, because oddly enough, it's the one thing I've never thought of trying to do around here. And I think of trying to do like a lot of things. But they're still super fun.
Yeah. And we are only referencing 4 articles this episode, not 6 like last episode. So we'll link all of those in the show notes. So make sure you go check those out if you want to take a deeper dive into what we're talking about today. But I thought it would be fun to start by answering the question, why would I want to keep reindeer and maybe even start a business? And there's a few reasons why. Reindeer can be considered a source of lean, tasty meat. So there's one option.
And I have eaten reindeer, so I can attest to that.
I think I've had reindeer jerky before.
Oh.
So I don't know. Like, once it's jerky, like, it's hard to tell the difference between any kind of wild game, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Maybe I've just had really bad jerky. I don't know. But you can actually also sell their antlers in the velvet stage because Chinese medicine uses antlers for a variety of different ailments and is also considered to be an aphrodisiac. Bow chicka wow wow. Reindeer also make good pets because they can be gentle and friendly, and you can even train them to pull sleds or carts and give rides. So if you market yourself correctly, you can really do a lot of neat things with reindeer. For example, an Alaskan reindeer farm called Reindeer Farm states that
So original.
right? Well, you know what? They snagged up that name before anybody else could.
I mean, genius. That's exactly what running a business is, right?
Yes. They say that our reindeer have gone to picnics and festivals to give rides, have competed in the World Championship reindeer sled races at the Fur Rendezvous in Anchorage, have been paid to be in many commercials, including a Chevy Tough Like a Rock commercial filmed on their farm with their horses and reindeer. They've been in 3 feature-length movies and posed as New York models on a glacier for an ad in Vogue magazine. And they also attract thousands of tourists to their farm in the summer months. And according to various data sources from farm websites, a pair of reindeer may rent for $200 to $300 or more an hour. Some even charge a minimum of $1,750 for an 8-hour day. Holy smokes.
Yeah, I mean, reindeer definitely sound like a viable business idea.
Yes. So to piggyback off of, how much I can make by renting out my reindeer, how much are reindeer? You can expect to pay around $1,000 at the low end for a male reindeer, with prices raising for trained female reindeer. So with feed, veterinary, and reindeer-related farm maintenance costs, you can expect to each reindeer to cost about $2,000 annually in upkeep. So not only is it the initial purchase, but also the upkeep. So that's a pretty expensive hobby to have, which I guess if, this podcast does really well, it would be feasible for me to just have them as pets. But it sounds like I would need to take them with us on podcast tour if I wanted to keep them.
Yeah, I mean, so I'm trying to think, like, I don't know that I've ever actually sat down and figured out, like, how much my ghosts cost us per year, but I don't think it's $2,000 in feed and veterinary care each. Like, I mean, I'm having my entire store of winter hay delivered, and it's going to be like $260. So, like, I don't think I spend that much on the goats. So they're kind of an expensive farm animal.
You better knock on some wood right now.
Right? I know.
Yeah, I was just kind of thinking in my head, and it's like the amount of feed we buy each month and in the hay that they consume in a month. For all 10 that we currently have in the 3 babies, it's less than $1,000 a year. And that's for 10 animals. It's probably, and that's considering that, we took some of them to the vet to get castrated and to do their disbudding and the shots, their initial shots. So, like, if we did some of that ourselves, we could save money there. But the way that I like castration to be done, it's not through banding, it's through some slice and dice. And I'm not trained to do that. And I just appreciate taking them to the vet and getting them checked out, especially when they're young like that too. So it probably just depends on how much you can do on your own. When you get with those larger animals, it gets a little complicated though.
Yeah, for sure. I could definitely see that.
So you may be asking yourself at this point, how do I get reindeer? Because, it's probably not as easy as going out and finding a goat.
Probably not. I don't think I've ever seen them like stuck to my local feed stores like for sale board.
No, that would be interesting though, and very tempting.
Yeah. Tell me about it.
So the first steps you want to take are to contact your state's veterinarian to find out if your state considers reindeer to be livestock under agriculture or wild animals under fish and game. So you'll want to ask if reindeer are even allowed in your state, and if so, what tests are required for their health certificate.
That's a really important thing to point out because I would not have thought of them as wild animals, but they totally are because they're caribou.
Yeah, lazy caribou. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, you'll want to listen to last week's episode.
Yes.
So after you find out if reindeer are under agriculture or fish and game, contact the appropriate agency to find out what kind of fencing is required by your state. Because if you didn't feel micromanaged already, now you really do. But it's for good reason. Like, you can't have your reindeer busting out and, like, running into traffic and, like, just kind of showing up in people's yards and houses.
Well, and if reindeer are anything like deer, have you ever watched a deer jump over a fence?
Oh, yeah.
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 We have 5-foot fencing around our pasture, and they just like dive right over it like it's nothing.
Yeah. So if there are white-tailed deer in your area and you're east of the Mississippi River, you'll actually want fences high enough to keep them out, those white-tailed deer out.
Yeah.
And this is because white-tailed deer can carry a brainworm that is deadly to reindeer, caribou, moose, and llamas. Which the llama thing like blew my mind. I had no idea. And it actually requires a cycle that involves a certain kind of tree, a snail, and white-tailed deer, and is only in a few areas in the eastern United States. So if you have any moose, caribou, reindeer, or llamas in your area, you don't need to worry about this. So like if they're naturally there, you don't need to worry. Otherwise, you'll want to have fences high enough to keep white-tailed deer out. And it also says not to buy hay from fields that have been infected by white-tailed deer. And I'm like, well, shit, they're everywhere here.
Yeah, they pretty much are everywhere. But like you pointed out, like that brainworm requires a cycle that involves a certain kind of tree and a snail. Mm-hmm. So like it doesn't sound like it's super common, like the wasting disease. Yeah, sort of is. So chances are you're probably okay. And Game and Fish will tell you if it's something that you need to worry about in your area.
Yes.
Like I imagine that's just an easy Google search.
I hope so. But man, talk about things you didn't think about.
I mean, always. That's the way always everything is, right?
Yes. So in the case of the Alaska reindeer farm that we mentioned earlier, they suggest contacting airlines to figure out who ships from Alaska to your area. And this is specifically for that farm. But if you need to think about where you're getting reindeer and if they need to take flight, not by like Santa standards, but by like, the actual airplane standards.
Like commercial airline standards.
Yeah, those, they go through TSA, all that. You want to make sure that you have airlines available that fly out from Alaska to your airport where you can go pick them up. They said they've shipped by Delta, Northwest, and Alaska Airlines to Seattle, Salt Lake City, Denver, San Francisco, Portland, Chicago, Detroit, Atlanta, JFK, New York, St. Louis, and Minneapolis without any problems prior to 9/11. And they actually stopped shipping for a while after 9/11 because regulations shifted.
Yeah, so we actually have a local deer farm around here, and they raised deer domestically and used to ship them to places, and they haven't done that for at least the last decade or so because the regulations to fly deer out of our state, I guess, are just like a little too much to handle for it. So they've actually scaled that operation back quite a bit.
So they do mention that they've recently shipped on Alaska Airlines to Seattle and to Haines without any complication. And Delta has told them that they might take reindeer, but have not yet attempted to try to send them with Delta. And for awareness, the adult crate size for a reindeer is 38 inches high, by 24 inches wide and 68 inches long.
Oh my god.
Which is so small. But their antlers will have to be sawed off for a large deer so they can fit comfortably in the crates. And all animals need testing and movement permits, whether within the state of Alaska or out of state. And an in-state permit can take around 3 weeks to a month to get, based on the test results coming back and the permit to move.
So basically, if you're in a hurry for your reindeer, you're going to have to suck it up for just a little bit.
Yeah. You might want to go back to the episode where we talk about project management application to projects, because you're going to need all those steps here and lots of planning.
Yeah, it sounds like it.
Yes.
So what do you do when reindeer arrive, and what's required to keep them? So depending on how you got your reindeer, you're going to want to take them out of the crate, obviously, because they can't live there. It's far too small.
Right.
But you don't want to just put them out into like a big, large pasture and let them go. You'll basically never see them again.
Right.
So they have to go into pretty much like a stall, essentially, so that they've got a safe place that they can learn is their home. And it's a safe place where they can't be hurt in and they can't get out of it. Because what they're going to want to do is they're going to want to try to escape it and go quote unquote home, essentially.
Yeah.
So you need to let them just kind of chill out in their stall or whatever you've designated as their home, and let them get comfortable. Make sure that they've got some snow or some water. They need to have some feed and some hay, and they'll essentially settle in within just, a week or two. So then after that, you can put them out onto your pasture that has a 6-foot high fence. And don't forget that 6-foot high fence.
Yeah. So much fence stretching. Ugh.
Yeah.
Yeah. And not only do you have to go, put all that work into building those really sturdy fences, reindeer actually like to play in the fence with their antlers. So the fence wire should be high tensile strength and stretched tightly, or they will cut holes in it with their antlers.
Is that what they call it? Playing in the fence? Because the deer do that to my fence too, and it doesn't feel very playful.
Oh, gosh, darn animals. So any loose wire is something to play in. So don't clear the ground for them either. They love trees and bushes, and they need shade in the summer. And this source also says that they use 5 feet by 16 feet welded wire panels with uniform squares. And those are even better as they are basically indestructible.
And your fence should also be predator proof, because neighborhood dogs can be a predator problem to your reindeer, especially during calving season. So you want to make sure that your fence is sturdy enough to keep the things out and the reindeer in. And they said, the person that we got this article from said that when they brought their reindeer home to their farm, they kept them in a small pen with 6-foot high walls for a few days until they settled in. And then once they figured out that that was where they would be fed and not hurt, that they were perfectly happy there. So that's good.
Yeah. Because once, reindeer realize that you're not going to hurt them and you're going to feed them, they're pretty content there. Just like any other animal, really. So speaking of food, what can you feed a reindeer, like for food and treats? So you can actually feed your reindeer a broad-leafed grass hay, and you can also allow them to graze. They will eat grass, weeds, and leaves. And then there's also pellets that you can feed them, and they recommend pellets that are made with barley, vitamins, minerals, salt, and molasses. And they have chosen to mix their pellets with the spent grains or beer mash from the breweries in Anchorage and ground hay. It makes a pretty nutritious feed for them. And they are fed twice a day, getting about 5 pounds per deer per feeding. That's a lot of feed.
Yeah, I was just thinking about that. That is a lot of feed.
So they, for treats, they put pieces of bread and apple in their food to get them used to it. And some of them think of it as a treat, and then it's something that you can give them, like for, probably when you're training them, or if you have guests that are coming to visit them, to have that magical reindeer moment.
So one thing that the article didn't tell us, though, is if reindeer like candy canes.
Oh, it's probably not good for them, I would think. But if they're eating molasses,
Right. They're getting some sugar. But have you ever seen that
Yeah.
movie, The Christmas Chronicles? They
I
feed the
haven't.
reindeer candy canes as a treat. And actually, Herc really likes peppermints. And apparently that's like a known thing that like donkeys
Oh.
like peppermints. So I would not be surprised if reindeer liked candy canes.
I think I saw some horse treats that were peppermint too when I was at the feed store. So, yeah, maybe they do. So, now that you have these reindeer and they're settled in, and you want them to do something fun like pull a sleigh, what's a good training approach for the new reindeer? So, you don't want to try it like right away. You got to build trust with the animal. So, you're going to have to wait a few weeks. You want them to settle in, call it home, get used to the people around them, and then you can go into the pen to feed them. And this is a good start because some of them will approach you and let you pet them or hand feed them, and others will be skittish. Some reindeer can be a little jumpier than others, but typically reindeer are less spooked than other kinds of deer. And some of them feel less threatened if you're sitting or kneeling down, which can be a little intimidating when you have an animal that is as big as a reindeer and you're like sitting or kneeling.
Especially with a rack as big as a reindeer. Like,
yeah. So we typically it's recommended that you don't look them in the eye. You can just kind of sit there with a big bowl of reindeer pellets and wait until they come say hi to you. And after a few days of doing that, you can start petting them. And then you can start halter training. And the reindeer farm recommends that you put the halter on for a few seconds. And you do this take it on, take it off kind of behavior and increase the amount of time and pressure each time. And then you put the rope on and take them out of the pen for some grass. So you start training slowly, repetitively, and over time you'll be able to teach them all kinds of cool things.
Kind of sounds like training a donkey.
Yeah, I was gonna ask, like, as I'm reading this, I was like, I wonder if this is like what Bev, like the steps she took to help with Herc and his training.
Yep, pretty much. It's almost exactly what we did. Yeah, especially because like I was one of those people that made the mistake of just letting Herc go in the pasture. So remember, for the first like couple of weeks, I couldn't get him to come to me.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it can be difficult, especially when you have a new animal and an animal that isn't a baby and that is used to being pastured. Like it's super easy to think that, oh yeah, I can just put him out there and it'll be fine.
Yeah.
It's totally, I think that's a natural thought to have, but sometimes you gotta learn the hard way, no matter how much research you do.
Right. Well, and I was considering, and in fact, the farmer and I talked about this with Percy, the cow. We were talking about having him come and just go straight into a barn stall so that I would have a couple of weeks to just like go in there and like be petting him and playing with him and stuff. And then I could halter train him before I put him out there with Herc. But I ultimately decided that, you know, with like Christmas stuff coming up and like other things, and I have a work trip in January, I was like, no, the pasture is now small enough that I can get to him. But as soon as he comes, I'll feed him a treat and he'll figure out that I'm the treat dispenser. And when he sees Herc coming up to me, I'm thinking that he'll warm up a little faster than Herc did. So I decided against that. But
Well, and thinking about like the size of your barn stalls, they're pretty good size, but cows have really big shit.
yeah, they totally do. So I'd have to be really good about cleaning it and sanitizing it, and and plus, keep making sure that his feed stays full and whatnot, because he's an 850-pound animal. So yeah, I think it's better off for him to just go straight out into the pasture.
Yeah. You guys will figure it out.
We totally will.
So after all of that, if the initial sticker shock of keeping and buying reindeer doesn't scare you, and the whole transportation piece, like we talked about airport stuff, but you can totally, I shouldn't assume, you can most likely find a source that you could drive to. It might take a couple days to get there, where you can get reindeer from a source where it wouldn't require them to be frozen. So if you're in the continental United States, probably not Alaska, but to each their own. If you're still like really feeling like you want to start a business with this, it's time to do your research. And there are a few leading reindeer farms that you can take a look at to get an idea or get some information from. And there's one called Dashaway Reindeer. Fulton Valley Farms, Reindeer Farm, which we've talked about a few times. And in fact, Rooftop Reindeer .com or Rooftop Landing Reindeer Farm is in Clare, Michigan, which is just north of Mount Pleasant where I went to school. And I've seen their reindeer before because they would bring them to one of the grocery stores in Mount Pleasant and have them outside. And the grocery store is called Rick's. So for anybody local, you'll be like, hey, yeah, I've totally done that. So that might be a source where I can get reindeer someday if they sell them and be super close. So check those out to give some ideas of like, you know, how they set their stuff up and, you know, maybe some information about their business that can help inspire you. So once you check out like the big players, you'll want to do an economic analysis. So you have to get your costing economic analysis right if your intention is building the business to generate profits and grow and perhaps expand the business and start exporting fur, leather, and milk within your country and other countries of the world. So I think before you even start the economic analysis, you need to decide how you're going to utilize your reindeer. Is it going to be for their meat, for you know, their skin, milk, or is it going to just be kind of like the novelty factor of having reindeer around Christmas time?
Yeah, because you can totally just use them to like go hang out with Santas in town squares and stuff, right?
Yeah, I think that's the route I would most likely go. I mean, maybe I'd use their milk. I don't know. Maybe Santa likes reindeer milk with his cookies.
I mean, we did hear that last episode that their milk was like exceptionally nutritious and high in butterfat, right? So it's really good milk. There's just not a lot of it at every time. So you might be milking a lot.
Exactly. So in order to do that economic analysis, you'll need to examine some key factors like access to the market, access to feed, because reindeer are herbivores, which means they only eat vegetarian. Their diets include herbs, ferns, mosses, grasses, shoots, fungi, and leaves. You'll also want to consider your access to medication and probably veterinary care as well. Make sure your vet, your local vet could help you. And if they can't, who are you going to call to come, you know, help you with your reindeer? Or can you take them somewhere? Because that could impact your budget pretty quickly if something goes wrong.
Yeah, I mean, because you're paying over $1,000 per an animal and then $2,000 a year of upkeep. Like, this isn't an animal that when it gets sick, you just leave it out in the pasture. I mean, I don't think anybody necessarily does that with their animals, but like access to vet care, sometimes you do have to make like the hard decisions between what you can afford to pay a vet for and what you have to try to treat yourself at home. So like these are creatures that you invested a lot in. You're probably gonna want to call a vet anytime they're ill. Right.
Some other things that you want to consider too are cost of labor. So if you're going to need help, if it's going to be a really big operation, you want to have access to people that are willing to work in those conditions and you're willing to pay them fairly. And you also want to consider if your climatic condition is good enough for this, if it's appropriate for reindeer, and if it is, like, that probably means that, you know, reindeer do all right in the heat. But if you're in a really snowy place, you got to think about, like, okay, how am I going to get to the reindeer when there's 3 feet of snow? So snow removal, keeping things from freezing, keeping the reindeer happy in the process. So lots of different things to consider with your analysis.
And once you've decided that you are actually going to start a business and you're going to start a reindeer business, there are some legal matters that you'll have to attend to. And this is true no matter what kind of business you decide to start. And one of the most important things that you'll have to look into is deciding what kind of business structure suits your business goals, because there are different like levels of business, so to speak. So, you know, you can have an LLC, you can have an S Corp, you can have a corporation, you can run a reindeer rescue and file for a 501c3. Like, you get to decide how you structure your business, and all of that is dependent on what your goals are. So you're probably going to want to talk to like an accountant or a lawyer. Either one of those people will be able to help you decide what the best business structure is for your specific situation, especially from like the tax standpoint, because businesses don't come without tax consequences. That's just the way that it is.
Womp womp.
Yep.
So something a little more lighthearted and fun. You want to come up with a catchy business name for your reindeer farming business. And you want to register the business name with a regulating authority. And when you come up with your name, it's always advisable to run a search to ensure that the name you chose is not already trademarked by another company. And in the US, a business name cannot have any profanity in it, and it must not be similar to the name of a company that is legally registered at Companies House, or else it will not be approved.
Something else you should also look into when choosing your name is you want to look and see if the Instagram handle is available, or the Facebook page or Twitter handle or your website. Like it's so much easier for like us personally for our podcast, for example, like drinkandfarm.com. It's so easy. But imagine if we had to use like drink-farm-podcast or something like that. Like that would be impossible to say and get people to come and visit too. So
excellent point. And as soon as you settle on a name and get it registered, go buy your domains up like now.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. In fact, like we purchased and registered all of our stuff for this well before the first episode ever dropped. Like, but you know, that's once you've run a business, like, you know, to do all of those things first.
Yeah. Yeah. Bev was pretty serious and had a lot of faith that I wouldn't just disappear.
Well, and you know, if you did, like buying web domains and setting up stuff like that is super cheap, and registering with your state and whatnot. Now, it depends on your state. Like I think an LLC in California can be kind of pricey, but like an LLC in Ohio, I think it cost me like $50. So I was like, yeah, I'm going to go ahead and register this LLC because I want to make sure that I have it before we ever drop an episode. Because last thing we wanted to do was have to change names in the middle of it.
Oh, yeah, that would have been a nightmare.
Exactly.
So something else you want to consider, especially with a reindeer farm, is what insurance policies you need. So just like taxation, insurance policies are inevitable and required. In the United States and in most countries of the world, you can't operate a business without having some kind of basic insurance policy that covers your farm and your business. So you want to create a budget for insurance and perhaps even consult an insurance broker to guide you in choosing the best and most appropriate insurance policies for your reindeer farm.
Yeah, in fact, and I'm not going to say maybe you should consult a broker. Like I would definitely say absolutely talk to an insurance professional.
Yeah, especially when I'm like looking at this list that this article provides. They're like pointing out a bunch of different things that you might want, like general insurance, health insurance, liability insurance, animal mortality insurance, insurance for your auto and farm equipment, commercial agribusiness insurance, workers' comp, overhead expense, business owner's policy, intellectual property protection and trademark. Like, holy smokes.
Yeah, there's a lot. And chances are you don't need all of that. But like, so depending on what kind of business structure you choose and what you're going to do with your reindeer. But like, if your reindeer farm is for the public to come and visit it, it's just like when we talked about in the Christmas tree episode, like you need to have insurance in case, you know, your reindeer accidentally kick somebody or fall on somebody else's small child. Like,
or somebody climbs a fence and
exactly.
Your reindeer gets pissed.
Yeah. I mean, because, you know, we like to think that, oh, well, people acting in stupid manner like is automatically going to make it so that it's their fault and we're not liable for it. But that's just not the way that it works. If it happens on your property, chances are you're going to be liable for something. Now, if you like acted in good faith and, you know, you didn't intentionally set up a dangerous situation for people and they like climbed a fence, you're probably not going to have to pay out quite as much. But still, that's why you talk to an insurance person. Yeah. Like they'll make sure that you don't lose everything if something catastrophic happens, which, knock on wood, we hope things like that never do happen. But I think it helps me sleep want to know that I'm covered when, if something ever were to.
Yes. Depending on the intention of your business, there are some certifications that you want to work towards, maybe like a P livestock certification. There are various certifications for wool that you can look into and livestock production certificates. So it's, the average local reindeer farmer in the suburbs in the United States does not need these certifications. And that does not in any way stop anyone from growing their reindeer farm. So it's kind of like one of those nice to have things that you'll just need to mull over if you really need it or not. And it's definitely not a showstopper for you starting the business if you don't have those.
Well, and acquiring certifications though can show that you are really interested in your craft or chosen specialization area. Mm-hmm. So certifications can kind of help you dive into getting really into the part of the business that you like and want to get more into.
So everybody's favorite topic that, totally doesn't make them sweat when they talk about it. Financing your reindeer farm.
Money, 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 money.
So starting a standard reindeer farm business can be capital intensive, especially if you choose to launch a very large reindeer farm with the capacity to supply fur, hide, milk, and meat, beyond your immediate community. So one of the first things that you'll need to really think about is securing a large farm, building secured and conductive ranch with the right fencing, purchasing your first set of reindeer, livestock feed, farming tools and equipment. That's all big money, especially for startup capital. But if you choose to start the business on a small scale, you might not have to really figure out a huge funding source. And when it comes to financing a business, one of the first things you should consider is writing up a good business plan. Really, that's the first thing you should do probably before you even buy your reindeer, to clearly define what your plan is, what your intention is, and how you're going to execute it.
Yeah, having a good plan allows you to go back to that anytime you start to feel like you're getting off base.
Yes. And if you're going to apply for a loan through the bank, like for a business loan, they're going to want to see your business plan. So it's not just kind of like a nice to have thing that you should do to refer back to. It's pretty critical in securing large amounts of money.
Yeah.
So depending on what your intent is, you can raise money from personal savings or sale of personal stocks and properties. You can raise money from investors and business partners. You can apply for a loan from the bank. You can pitch your business idea and apply for business grants. Or you can ask for soft loans from your family members or friends, which that just made me start sweating saying that out loud. That is not something I would personally do. If they wanted to gift me money, okay, but money and family and friends can be really tricky. So if you're going to do that and it's going to be a loan, you might want to do that formally and set up a solid plan that you're not going to default on.
Yeah. I mean, you could also go on Shark Tank and pitch your idea.
So,
ooh. I mean, there's all sorts of ways to raise business money. My favorite way to start businesses, because I've started a few and I help with a lot. Seriously, you guys, you have no idea how many things I have my fingers into. One of my favorite ways, though, is just to start small and sort of ramp it up. I feel like that allows for organic growth, depending on what it is that you're going to do. Because, depending on what you're going to do with your reindeer farm, your town isn't going to pay you tens of thousands of dollars to bring your reindeer down for, the neighborhood kids Santa picture thing. That's probably something you're going to volunteer for, So
I'm making everybody pay me tens of thousands of dollars to participate in that.
But those are things that you've all got to keep in mind. So borrowing tons of money to start off on something like reindeer, I don't know. You have to have a really solid plan to want to do that.
Yeah, I agree. So obviously one of the other things you need to think through is choosing a good location. And again, this goes back to the intent thing, because if it's just going to be your own personal farm and you're kind of going places instead of having people come to you, That can make a big difference, but you want to consider things like location, demand in the area if you're going more of like the food route, accessibility to the location if people are coming to you, your local laws and regulations, and traffic, parking, and security if people are coming to you. Like, you got to have room for all of that if you're inviting the public to your business.
Yeah. And, just like the Christmas tree farming, something else that you'll really need to look into is how you're going to market your reindeer farm. Marketing is just like it'll make or break your reindeer farm for sure.
Right. So if you're going to think about your marketing plan, you want to think about the use of the internet, which Bev and I are pretty great about doing, for ours. If I'm going to brag a little. Billboards. So billboards, if you're going to be a tourist attraction along major expressways, that's a smart idea. Some of the articles said mailers, and I was just kind of like meh about that because it's a lot of trees to kill.
I don't like mail unless we're sending Christmas cards and stickers to people as a surprise in the mail. I like that kind of mail.
Yeah. And obviously word of mouth. And you can always work with other local businesses to see if, you can kind of have a symbiotic relationship of cross-advertising or just helping each other out. So
yeah, maybe two neighbors can have like a Christmas tree farm and then like a reindeer farm, and then the dude down the street dresses up as Santa. Like all of that can all work together like super well.
Yes. So I was about to say that's it, guys, but that's really not. That's just like scratching the surface for like the technical end. And we tried to keep that brief so you guys wouldn't want to claw your eyeballs out. Or, pierce your eardrums, because we know you're not necessarily here to be talked to, for us to talk to you about the business side. But, we wanted to give you the reality because like, it's really easy to romanticize like the idea of a tree farm or a reindeer farm, but it's serious business and there's a lot that goes into it. And that just, looking over all this stuff just makes me have even more respect for business owners and everything they have to go through.
Yeah, I think this was a really good, I don't know that we've necessarily run through like the nitty gritty of running like the back end of a business before.
Oh, no.
And, we did it in a funny manner using Reindeer Farm as an example, but a lot of that advice can be applied to basically anything that you want to do, guys, on your farm. Like whether it's painting signs or making jewelry or selling eggs or vegetables or putting together like a CSA box, like you can listen to that area again in this episode and apply it to pretty much everything. So
yes,
we'll try not to bore you with that stuff too much unless you guys really liked it. I mean, I could talk about business all day.
But we don't have time for that because it's time for We Can't Even Corner.
Yes.
So what is your can't even this week, Bev?
So my can't even is that a brewery was asked to remove cans that were displaying not safe for work reindeer games.
Oh, really? Tell me more.
Yes. So apparently there is a brewery called Sycamore Brewing, and it's in Charlotte, North Carolina. And it decided to redesign the can for its annual Christmas cookie winter ale. And at a distance, the can more or less looks kind of like an ugly Christmas sweater. It's got like snowflakes and other wintry shapes and like reindeer and stuff dotted on it. But if you look a little closer, the reindeer appear to be enjoying each other's company just a little too much.
Uh-oh.
If you get my drift. So basically,
right now.
Yeah. So apparently someone took issue with the cans because there was an anonymous tip that was sent to the North Carolina Alcoholic Beverage Control Commission. And apparently like a representative from this commission went to the brewery and the label design was not submitted to this agency for approval. So chances are if it had been submitted for approval, they would have denied it because it had reindeer in sexually explicit positions. for lack of a better
Oh.
way to describe it.
It's open now. I am seeing it in all of its glory. This is hilarious.
Yeah, I mean, it's subtle though. Like when I saw it, I was like, I would have
Yes.
never thought anything of it because they're really small. So it's tasteful reindeer games, if you ask me. But
Softcore reindeer games.
exactly. But it apparently made somebody upset. And since they didn't get the label approved, basically, like this commission was like, you can't have these labels anymore. So they're
Boo.
changing it and they're going to have to pay a small fine. But gosh, I really wish I could get a hold of one of these cans before the label is updated, just because I would hold on to it, like, I don't know, as a trophy or something, because I think it's
mean,
super interesting.
I would say that label is Drink and Farm approved.
Yeah, I would say so too. And honestly, like I said, I mean, you guys can click the link in the show notes. I don't think it's that big of a deal. Like, I don't think
No.
that many people would have noticed it. Like, I don't know.
When you're buying beer and you have to be over 21 to do so, and if you can take a good joke, like, have you ever seen the ugly Christmas sweaters by Tipsy Elves?
Oh, yeah.
Those are clearly reindeer boning in some of those. And
Yeah.
people buy the shit out of those. And they're like $70 sweaters. Like, ugh. Yeah. I think really they're making a mistake by trying to change this. Or maybe it's a publicity stunt, to put it out in the open that these people are in trouble. Because people are just going to go buy it.
Pretty much. Yeah, that might be what it is. But my favorite is like the caption under the photo is, "What prude was actually offended by this?" Because when I saw it, like it took me a minute to see what the reindeer was doing. I was like, I don't understand. And then I like squinted and picked up my laptop. I was like, oh, I see it now.
Oh, that's what they're doing.
So what's your can't even this week?
So this week, my can't even is from CNN.com, and the title is "Woman Finds 10-Foot Python in Her Christmas Tree."
What the hell?
Ugh.
Send that thing
So-
back.
Yeah, so it's not what it sounds like. I felt a little offended. I felt like this was very clickbaity, and I was a little mad, but it's still kind of funny. So, what happened was there was this woman in Australia.
That's all you had to say, Australia. That totally explains this.
So when she got home, there was a 10-foot python adorning her tree. Now, the tree was like out on her balcony. Okay. So she came home from work and there was a couple of butcher birds that visit every day. I don't know what the hell a butcher bird is. I guess I could Google it. But they were hanging out on the tree and they're hanging out on the balcony and they're going crazy. So she like stepped out on the balcony and she was like trying to take a video of the birds and she was leaning on the tree, not realizing what was wrapped around it. And it turns out that there was a 10-foot python wrapped around the Christmas tree. And the couple actually just decided to leave the snake alone. And later that night, it slithered away. And they said that the snake wasn't bothered by them. It just stayed up there for a good few hours. And they just sat there and watched it. And it was only when the reptile moved from its position that the couple realized how big it was.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And she says, after the initial shock wore off, it was a really beautiful snake. And it was actually quite nice to see that up close because she's never seen anything like that before. And I'm just like, lady, there's this big ass snake on your balcony. You're lucky it didn't come in your house and eat you while you were asleep.
Pretty much. Well, the snake was probably there for the butcher birds, which are magpies,
Yeah.
by the way. They're
What
like
are they?
songbirds. Magpies?
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Good to know. So yeah, I thought that was timely and terrifying. So there you go.
Yeah, it was. I'm thoroughly terrified. I'll be checking my Christmas tree later. But since I don't live in Australia, I probably don't have a python.
You're
in it.
probably fine. You're probably fine.
So be sure and send us your farm stories, guys. We're not going to read one this week, but if you have anything awesome or funny or scary or sad or anything that you want to share with the greater Drink and Farm community, you can email those stories over to drinkandfarm@gmail.com, or you can send them to us through the DMs on the Instagrams.
Yes. And make sure you leave us a review. We read our favorite Apple Podcast review each week. If you don't have an Apple product, you can download iTunes on your laptop and leave a review that way. I think the one we read last week, that's actually what she had to do. So anybody that does that gets like extra brownie points, in my opinion.
Yes, for sure.
So what we do is we take all the reviews we read for that month and draw a name out of the hat, and that person will get an exclusive coffee mug that is not and will never be in the shop. So make sure you leave your Instagram handle or some way for us to find you in the review. So if you do win, we can get it to you.
Exactly. And do you want to do the honors of reading this week's review? I realize I read them a lot.
Oh, I think it's just because I talk so much.
That's okay. I like your voice.
I like your voice better. Okay, so this week, this review is titled Hilarious and Informative. And it reads, I absolutely love this podcast. Just listened to the most recent episode and died laughing when Sam and Bev tried gobbling like turkeys.
You're welcome.
See, we thought we were going to lose people with that. Turns out you guys are just as weird as us.
Good.
The review continues, I haven't started my farm yet, but I'm making plans. This podcast has been a big help and has taught me a lot. I love it. And that review is from TJS715. So thank you. That's so nice.
Yes, thanks so much. I love it. So we've got just a couple of housekeeping and announcements for you guys. Coop Camp 2020 has been announced, and it's going to take place in the same place that it was in last year, which is just outside of Indianapolis, June 5th through the 7th. We will definitely be there, and you should join us too. As soon as we have like information on how you can actually like get your tickets and whatnot, we'll share it, but you can start planning travel now.
Yeah. Take the days off from work if you have a big kid job. Arrange sitters if you are momming so hard or dadding so hard. I guess I shouldn't just, discriminate there. It's welcome for all. There are crazy chicken guys and gals there.
Yes, there are.
Somebody asked us today for more information too. So I know some of you are getting excited. And like Bev said, we'll share it as soon as we have it. And in the meantime, hit the subscribe button and download the episode when you listen, because this helps more people like you find us.
And do us a favor and be sure and share this episode over on the Instagram in your stories and tag @DrinkandFarm, because we'll send you a promo code that's only good for the week that this episode is the newest episode. And that gives you a percentage off in our shop, both drinkware and farmware, I guess is what we'll call it.
Yeah.
But everything that's on our website.
And make sure you take a look at the show notes to find links to all the articles we discussed and an opportunity to take an anonymous survey to tell us how we're doing. And all of our social media goodness and merch shops are up there too. So take a look.
Yeah. And that's it, guys. That's all we have for you. Thanks so much for listening.
Merry Christmas.
Yes. And
If
however you celebrate.
Happy Hanukkah, happy Kwanzaa, all that fun stuff. We just hope you have a great time.
Yes, we just hope you have a wonderful holiday in general.
And don't drink and drive. Please.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. So drink.
Farm.
And be merry. Bye, guys.
Bye.
We drink things, we farm things, we drink and